It's Wednesday, the 18th of October, and this is the Ask TCW podcast. We're live, and we have a special guest joining us, and we'll tell you who that is after our music intro. Yes, thank you very much for joining us this evening or whenever you are listening to us. Thank you very much for listening in. My name is Aaron Lord, and joining me tonight to answer your questions are Jono Bullard.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, JB, and Andy Haywood.
Evening.
Good evening, mate. And finally, our special guest this weekend. Very lucky to have him taking the time out to join us from across the pond. He is, of course, ex-Panthers player Brock Wilson. Good evening, or should I say good afternoon, Brock?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the EIHL and Panthers Nation.
How are you, mate?
I'm doing very well, very well. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're good. Thank you very much for joining us. And we have lots of questions for you to answer. But before we get into that, let's just have a couple of minutes to maybe there's some new fans to the Panthers or maybe to this podcast that might not have heard from you because, you know, you have done interviews over the past with our very own Jono Bullard. But just for those people listening in, just give us a bit of a background on how you've, you know, your time at the Panthers in 2011-12.
Well, there was a defenseman there, and we had a great group of guys, and was kind of unsure about what to expect when I came over there, and fell in love with the city, fell in love with the fans, and had probably the best year of my life over there playing hockey, and we won the double. We didn't get the big one, but we won the double, and like I said, my heart's been there ever since. It was an amazing experience, and like I said, Nottingham and that league, the EIHL, has been a big part of my life moving forward, and I hope to continue that and to be over there sometime soon.
Good. That's great to hear. I mean, you know, the Panthers for you, it's kind of been in your family for a long time. Can you just maybe elaborate that a little bit more, just for the people that maybe not know the kind of history that you have with the Panthers?
Yeah, my grandfather Wink, I believe it was 60. Was it 61? He was a defenseman. He played over there in Nottingham, and like you said, he was very kind of like Jordy and I. My cousin Jordy, he was in Nottingham the year I came over, and we kind of made it a family connection. It was kind of funny how it all pieced together, and it was one of the things that kind of drew us to Nottingham. And once we got there, it felt like family. It was funny. My grandfather played there, and then Jordy and I played there, and then it was the people accepted us like we were one of their own. So it was just a kind of a big family connection that we had, and then the city took us in and like their family. So it was an amazing thing, and it's left an everlasting effect on me, and obviously I have a tattoo on my forearm with the Nottingham logo and my grandfather's nickname Wink in it. He passed a few years back, and like I said, that's how much it meant to Nottingham, meant to him and my cousin Jordy and I. So
great, lovely to hear that, and it didn't kind of stop there, did it? Really, to be fair, right? Because you've kind of, some people might say, you've took on a bit of a scouting job for the Panthers because you've managed to persuade a few players to come over and join the Panthers.
Yeah, like I said, anything I can do to help out. Corey's always good to me, and I've had a good relationship with Corey, and I'm a big believer in the league and a big believer in Nottingham and what the city had done for me in my life, my career towards the end of it. I wanted others to experience it, and I also want to see the team do well, and it's a place that I will forever be indebted to, and like I said, if I can help them out in any way, I've wanted to do it. And the league and the way that the team and the city has treated the guys that I've basically put over there has been amazing, and it just makes me look good. So I mean, the feedback has been absolutely outstanding. I've talked to Shala a little bit here, and he loves it, and Cam absolutely adored it over there. And like you said, and for some reason, the guys that I do send over there, the people end up loving too. So it works out in every different way. So.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Cam made a massive impression, and I think we still feel that even a couple of seasons after he's left. And obviously Josh Shallow, like you mentioned, he started very well in the CHL, and he's looking to obviously bring that into the league as well. So you're doing a good job on that, mate. I think we have to say thank you very much to you, if I'm honest.
Well, I try. I was a little bit nervous. It's a little nerve-wracking having all that pressure. I told Josh, I said, you better make me look good. I swear it's your ass if you don't. So.
I think he's doing all right at the moment.
Yeah, he's still trying to find his rhythm. Like you said, It's a little bit different CHL in the league. You prepare yourself a little bit different, and they just have to find that rhythm. So he is a purebred goal scorer. Like I said, he reminds me of him and David Clark are very, very similar players. So.
Well, talking about the CHL, we will move on to the questions that we've had sent in to us. And if you're listening to us live right now and you've got a question for Brock or even for Jono and Andy, then please do get in touch with us via Twitter. Our handle is @CatsWhiskersTV, and just pop the hashtag AskTCW, and hopefully we'll find it a little bit easier. So do get in touch if you're listening to us live. But as you say, Brock, you mentioned Josh Shallow in the CHL, and we'll go to the first question, which is from Ali St. Clair via Facebook. And they says, how far does Brock think the Panthers can go in the CHL? Also, based on how well we've performed in the CHL, what does Brock think is the reason we're not steamrolling the Elite League? And Ali just mentions that obviously we've just had a very successful weekend against Sheffield and Belfast. But how far do you think we can go initially in the CHL, Brock?
You know what? At first, it was exciting to see them get the first win, and then the progress that they made after that and winning the group and actually being ahead in the group, and then finally winning the group. It's got me kind of taken back a little bit, and it's amazing to see. But now it's like, okay, we want more, as fans, because I am a fan. I'm a fan of the Nottingham Panthers. I'm a fan of the CHL, and I want to see them do as good as they can. And there's no reason right now with that team and the confidence that they have. They can take some of these teams by surprise. Now it's going to be a little bit difficult now because they kind of woken up everybody in that CHL and the final 16 teams. It gets a little bit tighter. But honestly, I think all around that team, they got good defense, good offense. Their goaltending's been outstanding right now. There's no reason that they can't make it into the 8, the Elite 8 and whatever be from there. There's potential there. And this could be a Cinderella's, run that, we are talking about 20 years from now. So, and I pray to God it is. There's no reason they can't. And Corey's done an amazing job with the coaching aspect and Strax, and I think that they have all the wheels turning right now for some upsets moving forward.
And I mean, just the second part of Ali's question there, I think a lot of the fans and I'll hold my hands up to this as well. You watch the performances in the CHL and you go, well, amazing! We're beating the 4th seed in the whole competition, and we're ranked 32nd. When we come and play Belfast or Sheffield or Edinburgh or Dundee in the Elite League, we are going to steamroll them. You automatically kind of think that, but it hasn't worked out like that. Obviously from your point of view as an ex-player and being involved in the game for many, many years, it doesn't always work out like that, does it?
No, it's not, like you said, it's not that easy. People think, all of a sudden you can just turn it on for different games and this and that, and it should be an easy job. Well, it's not. The CHL is a little bit different right now for them. That's the main task at hand, and it seems to me they're losing sight of the league a little bit because, the CHL is a big deal. They're getting all kinds of recognition for it. It's kind of on a pedestal for them right now, and the league's not as high on the priority list. And in that retrospective, when you're really competing that hard for the CHL and you want to do as good as you can, you lose that kind of that focus on the league play. And it's all about kind of balancing that out, which is a tough thing to do. I mean, in reality, I don't know if I would be able to do it. To get yourself up for that high for the CHL games, and then all of a sudden, okay, you're kind of at home, you're playing against Braehead or some of these other teams and the Sheffields and stuff. It's a little bit more difficult for them to kind of balance that and to find that excitement for the game. Yes, I get it. It's Sheffield, it's Belfast. You should be ready to go no matter what. Well, it's easier said than done sometimes. And I think that it's just finding that balance. And like you said, they had a big weekend this past weekend against 2 great teams. And hopefully moving forward, they've found that niche. They've found that way to balance it out. And like you said, it's easier for us to sit back and say, oh, they should be able to steamroll everybody in the league this year. Well, you know what? It's the league's more balanced too. It's not an easy league, and I'm telling you, you look at the way Cardiff did very, very well as well in the CHL. You know, they had a big win or two, and they did what they needed to do, and the league's rounded out extremely well, and that says a lot to the EIHL at the competition level. So, you know, it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, I mean, for the people that's listening live right now, obviously, as Brock mentioned, we did have a good weekend just gone past against Sheffield and Belfast, and we are actually playing a Challenge Cup game tonight up in Braehead. Now, the current score, if you don't know it, is 4-2 to the Panthers, 2 goals by Evan Mosey and 2 goals by Save as well. So it's looking quite good at the moment, and we will keep you updated with the scores as they come in whilst we are on air. But just quickly, Andy, I'll come to you just to kind of answer Ali's question as well. I mean, I'll ask you the kind of second part of that question, and you know, from your point of view, you know, why do you think we haven't kind of maybe seen the level of performances in the Elite League that we have seen in the CHL? Do you kind of agree with what Brock is saying, maybe that it's just hard to get up for some of those league games when you have had the performances that we've had in the CHL?
Yeah, I think there's a fair point there. But one of the things that I do think is massive is the fact that the style of play and you know in the CHL compared to our league is so much different, and obviously the big thing that we will always face in the CHL is the fact that we will always go into games as underdogs. We will always go into games and not get, you know, a lot of the possession. We will always go into games and be expected to be comfortably beaten. And I think that helps as well, because like Brock said, you can, if you go into the game as a professional knowing that you are underdogs and knowing that you are expected to lose, and knowing that, you know, it's being broadcast across the world, it's you know, it's a prestigious tournament and things like that, you're always going to up your game just to compete. And then obviously with the you know, the added bonus of, you know, we've gone from upping our game to compete like we did in the first Burn game, where I thought we played very well, but obviously we were on the end of 5-2, was it, or 4-2, 5-2?
5-2, yeah.
You know, scoreline, and let's be brutally honest, as fans, we were quite happy with that. You know, we were away from home against the 4th seeds. We kept it tight for a little bit, and then the quality showed, and you know, they managed to sort of race away a little bit, and we were happy with that, because that was our level. That's what we were expected to do. And then, you know, what happened after that is just fantastic. And I think realistically, I think there's a combination of a few things, in the sense that I think when you go into the game as favourites, or certainly as equals, you are looking at you know, you should be setting the pace, you should be you know, forcing the play and things like that. And obviously in the CHL, that really isn't expected of us at all, because, you know, we're expecting that the teams that we're playing will have all the possession, they'll have all the chances, and obviously we've seen, I think particularly in the Turku home game, you know, it's a case of absorbing that pressure as best you can, and obviously we managed to shut them out, and being clinical at the other end, and you know, pinching a couple of shots and getting a couple of goals, because realistically that was probably sort of, as much as the Mountfield coach would say differently, that was probably the biggest robbing that we've done this CHL campaign, in the sense that Turku were outstanding, they were very, very good, but they couldn't score, and that was down to our fantastic defence, and obviously we managed to get a couple and win the game. And I think being underdogs, I think, you know, going into these games with a completely different game plan, where we are expected to not see the puck so much, and completely agree with Brock. There's an excitement, there's a showcase regarding the CHL. It is always going to be easy to get up for those games. Domestically, yes, you'd like to think you can get up for every single game, but realistically, you know, it's not going to happen.
And just like, sorry to interrupt you, but it's also like right on topic with you. the Panthers have to get it for all those games. They're the underdogs. Well, guess what? The Panthers are winning those games at that level. Guess what happens when they come back to the EIHL? Everybody's chomping at the bit to play them and beat them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. And as I mentioned, I did say that we would update you with the scores from the Braehead game up in Braehead. And I obviously put a curse on it as commentators, or however that is said. Because the Braehead clan have scored to make it 4-3. Tyler Shattock has scored at 16:37 in the second period. So it's currently 4-3 to the Panthers. And like I say, we will update you any more scores. But we'll move on and say thank you very much for Ali sending in that question. And we'll bring in Mr. Jono Bullard on the next question, because you talk about chomping at the bit, and I believe he is chomping at the bit to answer this question from Rich McCaig via Twitter. What do you think of the apparent reluctance of Panthers to use a review system? Is the system used correctly? Now, JB, for people that might not know, can you just obviously give a bit of background to this question and kind of why Rich is asking this question?
Yeah, Rich asked it. He actually asked it me on my personal Twitter yesterday, and I sort of said, good question for Ask TCW, hint, hint. And he sort of sent it in for us to discuss tonight. I am not a fan of the review system at all. And after the weekend and what happened, I'm definitely not a fan of the review system.
So what happened at the weekend, John?
Well, obviously we had the incident where Evan Mosey was cited by Sheffield for a check into the boards. It was a bad check. It was a penalty, but for me, no more than a 2-minute penalty for boarding. In the same game, Robert Dowd does exactly the same in exactly the same position to Dan Spang. No penalty called. I'm not blaming the referee Dean Smith here. He only has one pair of eyes and he only gets to see it at real time. And this is another part of my rant. But a lot of this, I think, would be quashed if we had a 4-man official system, and we don't. And I think it's about time that we had a 4-man official system. But that's another argument. So we've got 2 identical incidents. Sheffield cited Mosey. His penalty is upgraded by DOPS from a 2-minute boarding to a 5+ game for checking from behind. In the same game, Panthers don't cite Robert Dowd. Rightly so, in my opinion, because it's a 2-minute boarding penalty if it was called. And it'd be a complete waste of time and money to review that incident. As I thought, it's a complete waste of time and money for Sheffield to cite the Mosey incident, and a complete waste of time and money for it to be reviewed. But this is where the consistency comes in. There's 2 identical incidents. One has ended up with a 5+ game, and one has ended up with nothing. So it's ridiculous. It makes a complete mockery of the referee, in my opinion, because he's made the call on the night. Now his authority is being questioned. Yet you've got 2 incidents the same. And I just don't like the idea of teams being able to cite other teams. I don't think for a minute that Sheffield cited Mosey for any reason out of spite and to try and get him banned for tonight's game against Braehead. I didn't think he was ever going to get banned because it wasn't worthy of a ban, frankly. And I just think the whole system is a complete and utter farce as far as reviews goes. I've said it before and I've been shouted down before, but I think each game should be independently reviewed, and if there's anything found, then it should be reviewed by DOPS. And interestingly, there were 6 other incidents reviewed by DOPS this week, and another one that they've seen that wasn't asked for a request has been brought in because it was spotted. So how can you have something spotted in another game and brought in where nobody's requested it? And yet in our game, you've got the Dowd hit, which wasn't looked at all. It's inconsistent, it's ridiculous, and it needs sorting out badly.
Couldn't agree more.
There you go. So Jono's had his little rant there, and we'll let Jono take a breath now.
I feel better.
And our very own at Marty Powers on Twitter has been in touch, and he says, shouldn't be down to clubs to request a review. Refs should review the game tape and refer accordingly. Now, Brock, I'll come to you because you've seen both incidents regarding the Mosey incident and the Dowd hit that Jono was just talking about. And, you know, Dops, I think you've previously spoken about and touched on about Dops, etc. But what's your opinion on just the two hits and kind of what Jono's saying regarding one being cited and obviously Panthers not taking the view to cite Dowd?
Well, I completely agree with Jono in every aspect. The consistency is not there, and you see it in the manner of the calls. I mean, and I respect the Panthers. Nottingham's viewpoint on that is, you know what, we're not going to waste our time with that. And there's no point because both incidents were very, very alike. Granted, Mosey's was a little bit different because it was a little bit further from the boards, and I think Doughty's was a little more kind of a hit and pin type of situation, but they could have both resulted in the same thing. Now, the fact is that the league sitting there you have to pay the league to review an incident don't even get me started on that. I think it's mind-blowing. I said it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard is the fact that for player safety, you have to pay in order for somebody to watch and review it, and his incident is ridiculous. Like you said, the individual game each one should be reviewed. If there's an incident, they review it. You don't have to pay for it because it's their job is to protect the players in general, and they're already getting paid to do that in the first place. So that's just mind-blowing. But the incidents were both very, very much alike. They were kind of harmless, but kind of not. I think the Mosey one, like you said, it was a little bit further from the boards, and he kind of came in. It was a little bit higher. It could have been a little more dangerous. I mean, if he would have went head first in, you're looking at some severe injuries. But, like you said, he kind of let up. It wasn't as hard. It wasn't as vicious. And Doughty's was literally, he just kind of rode him into the boards. Yeah, granted, from the backside, but it was kind of a hit and pin, and he just so happened to kind of catch him on the backside and press his face, facial up against the glass. But like I said, there wasn't any severe injuries. The potential was there. So if you're going to give them both fives, call them both fives. But there's got to be some sort of consistency, and there's none in either one of those calls. Because the reality is they both ended up with the same thing. So, they're neither one of them are vicious to me. I don't think that their intent is there, but the potential for injury was there. And you know what? If you're going to say here we're going to give one a 5 in a game, well, the other one should be 5 a game. Or you know what? They're going to both be 2. But there's no consistency there, and that's the issue.
Yeah, that magic word of consistency and the Elite League and DOPS is a great combination, unfortunately. But thank you very much, Chucky, for sending in your question. Now we will move on to another question that was sent in, and this one's directed to you again, Brock. And this one comes from Neil Lockwood, and he says, "Hi, Brock. Does this float your boat? Director of Hockey Operations Corey Wilson, Head Coach David Clark, Assistant Coach Brock Wilson, Scout Rick Strachan," and that says just young Brits prospects and opposition. So, Brock, does that float your boat? Asks Neil.
That does. You know what? I do like the sound of that. I like the fact that Corey's still involved. You see a lot of these tweets, and it's if Corey gets out of there, Corey this, Corey that. You know what? Corey's done an amazing job there, and he doesn't necessarily get the respect that he deserves sometimes because of his personality. He's a little bit dry, and that's just how he is. But you know what? You got to look at Corey and what he's done over there, and he's done some amazing things, and he deserves a lot more credit than he gets. I love Clarkie. Clarkie's a mind for the game. He's good with the guys. Clarkie was one of the first guys when I was over there to take me under his wing, and he's just he's a hell of a guy. You respect him. It's pretty interesting to see him over there coaching now because that's what he was meant to do. He was meant to be involved with the league 24/7, and that's his thing. And he's done a great job with his hockey camps and getting everything involved over there and growing the game. And like you said, Stricky, Strax is. That would be a perfect fit for him as well. If it would be something that he would want to do. And obviously me being over there would be ideal. And that's the ultimate goal is, at some point, I would love to make Nottingham my home. And I'm not just talking a year down the road. I mean, even the league, anything that has to do with the league. I love it over there. I love the people. And, I'm doing everything I can over here to do what I need to do to grow and develop as a coach, as a player in hockey, as a person in hockey and a hockey mind. And, it's something that it's in the back of my head. And at some point I'm chomping at the bit to get it going.
I mean, I'll bring in another question that kind of fits into this one. And this one comes from Luke Bell. And he sent it in via email, but he asks, do you still hold out ambitions to become, Elite League chairman? Now, obviously, you mentioned the Panthers, but you also mentioned the league as well. So would a role in the Elite League still suit you and something that you do have ambitions for, like you are mentioning?
Yeah, 100%. I love the league. I do. It's like I said, it's just anything to be over there. I love my time over there, and I love not just the Nottingham fans, and it's the league. It's the league as a whole. I respect everybody, and even the Sheffield fans and the Cardiff fans and the Edinburgh fans and the Braehead fans. I mean, they're such a close group in reality. You know what? They have banner and they have their words, but the reality is they all want the same thing, and they want a better the elite league. And I think that some of the things that we've spoken about are kind of being heard, and the league's kind of growing a little bit, and there were some eyes open. It's not going to happen overnight. And I know that it's an uphill task. And, if there's any way possible for me to better that league and to bring some more insight to the league or just help out in general, and that's what I want. And that's what I wanted all along. I didn't want to cut down the owners and cut down Tony. And it wasn't about that. But there were some things that had to be said as a whole, and the people needed to feel like they had a voice. And I felt like that's why it was taken to so well is that's what I gave them. And, at some point, I would love to be over there, no matter what it would be. I don't have just a loyalty to Nottingham. I have a loyalty to the league and what it gave to me. And it's not just, when something happens or when I tweet something, or, it hasn't just been Nottingham fans who've reached out. I've got support from everybody over the league, every city, whether it be Wink's death, my father's passing. It's amazing to me, the unity that league has as a whole fan base, and it's amazing to see. And you can't explain it because you don't see it in the NHL. You don't see it in a lot of other places, but for some reason that fan base of the EIHL is a hell of a fan base, and the people should be very, very proud of that. Their pride in their teams is outstanding, but they also have a common sense of family. Whether if families fight, they don't get along, but the reality is they all want the same thing, right? They want the best for the league and for each club.
I mean, it's a really good thing you mentioned about just how you don't find that necessarily in leagues, around Europe, and you mentioned the NHL, and you do see that hashtag of hockey family, etc. But it is kind of, it is really something that the elite league and its fan bases from all the teams should be proud of, really, isn't it? Because you don't see it everywhere, do you?
No, you don't. And it's something I've noticed more and more as time's gone on. And you're starting to see, I think a few years back, the league a little more isolated. Each team was kind of on its own. But I think that there's certain things that have really brought the league together. And I think that the fan bases are starting to come together. And as the teams get better and the competition gets better, the banner's still there. But I think the passion and the pride in the league as a whole has really brought the fan base together.
Mm. Well, I'll bring Andy on into Neil's original question, and I'll just put a different slant maybe on it for you, Andy. There will be changes eventually, and we've got a couple of questions regarding maybe changes ahead for the Panthers. But Director of Hockey Operations Corey Nielsen, and like Brock says, it would be important surely for us to keep Corey in the club in some capacity going forward if we can.
Definitely. I mean, not entirely sure quite what sort of official role or standing a director of hockey would have as such. I presume it would be similar to a sort of a general manager role in the NHL, perhaps. Obviously, our general manager role here is slightly different to what you get over in the States. I would imagine that a director of hockey would be a similar sort of role to that in the States. So definitely, I mean, whether it would suit Corey himself, whether that's something that potentially, if it is down to sort of looking at players and signing players and sort of putting us on the map, is it something he could do? Not necessarily on the side, but with coaching, perhaps back in the States, and just sort of having good words for us and things. Because obviously, like what Brock's done himself, as much as it's great to have these players in your club, it's the contacts you make that are then outside your club when they leave that really help. And obviously, like Brock's done, he's sent over some players that he's played with, or that he's coached or trained with, and things like that, and we've reaped the benefits of it. And it's having that network, I think that is huge. And obviously, with Corey's success over here, and if and when he does leave, I'd like to think that he'd have success elsewhere. And obviously, he can build on. He will be able to build on that network of contacts for us. So in that sense, I think it's. I think even if he didn't want to stay sort of within the club in a sort of director of hockey role, I think just having broadened that sort of that network and having someone of Corey's experience and Corey's calibre, having him able to help out the club in any way, shape or form is surely got to be seen as being a positive thing. Just like I mentioned, just like with Brock, and we've seen it with some of the other players in the past that have David Ling springs to mind recently. A lot was made about the fact that we'd signed half of Brampton Beast, and it's things like that really help a team, because obviously you get players over here that have already got some friends or teammates that we've already played with, but you've also got contacts already within the club for people that you've never met before. Yeah. Now, I don't doubt that like Brock said with Clarkey, taking him under his wing, I don't doubt for a second that when talking to people like Schaller and obviously Brock can sort of confirm or deny this, but I would imagine that one of the things he would say is, you've got some really good people in this club, a la David Clark, who will be, who'll be great for you. So it's that type of sort of network and commitment that we really need to keep Corey on that capacity. But obviously, if we can keep him in a more official and a sort of a higher capacity, then great.
It's about building that community. Sorry, it's about building that community, like you said. It's having a good organization from top to bottom. And for the people at home who don't necessarily understand, Corey's job, the GM over in the States, he's the one who makes the signings, decides the rosters, a lot of that day-to-day stuff of the teamwork. Well, Gary's pretty much the GM there, and he does a lot of the day-to-day operations from the office point of view, right? It's more so the aesthetics of it. What are we doing for our game programs and this and that? That's more Gary's. Okay, this is how much money's going here. He deals with the sponsorships. Corey is the head coach in NHL North America terms, GM. That's what Corey is. He signs the players. He gets the players in. He makes the decisions on the roster. And that's where the role he's at right now. It's not just a head coach. So, if moving forward, it's basically up to Corey and what Corey wants. Because like you said, he's done everything he can over there. So at some point, is he going to want a new challenge? Is he going to want to try something else? So
I think that leads us very nicely onto another question that we've had, and this one comes from the Cage Forum, and this one comes from Pies on the Cage, and he says, when Corey does leave the Panthers and he was to return to North America, what level of coaching would he be able to step into? We've seen coaches in this league go to be assistants in the OHL, but would he be looked at being a head coach in a high-quality league? So, Brock, I mean, from obviously, you understand the North American system and kind of the levels that they have there far more than myself, Jono, and Andy. So, like you've just said, Corey has achieved everything that he kind of can do. Apart from obviously winning the Champions Hockey League, which is still a possibility this year, folks. It could still happen. But where is his level maybe in the North American system?
It's hard to say. You can't put a cap on it. It's a matter of his opportunity, his connections. I mean, you see in the hockey world, it's all about who you know and where you've been. And the hockey community as a whole is very relationship based. Your opportunities come from who you know, and not necessarily your resume, but if you find a friend of yours who's in a certain position somewhere, he can get you an opportunity. Now, for me, I look at the way that Corey develops younger players and what he's done with some of the guys over there who were kind of in the middle of their careers. And, you look at a guy like Guy Lepine and some of the things that he's done, he did with me. Corey's a hell of a developer, and he's a good coach. And he gets the best out of guys when he needs to. And I think personally Corey would be an outstanding coach in the OHL, head coach. Now, it's a matter of what he would want to deal with. Does he want to coach, pro? Does he want to go here? Does he want to go there? I can't see Corey won't really necessarily wanting to coach in the East Coast Hockey League because it's not a real new challenge for him. If he got an opportunity to be an assistant in the American League, I think he would jump at it to be a part of an NHL organization. It would be amazing for him. But I personally think that Corey his best bet to start would be an OHL hockey team because I think he would do an absolutely amazing job there with the younger guys.
And and that is kind of a passion of his. You talk about Guy Lepine, you talk about yourself, but he's famous over here for his passion for the Brits and what he's done in giving the likes of Ollie Bettridge, Rob Lakovic, Robert Farmer, and then you can even go back to like the Josh Wards, etc. He's given them time, he gives them opportunities on power plays, penalty kills, etc. So I do think one of his passions is in kind of developing players and young players, as you say. But Jono, what's your kind of view? Because look, Corey is making a name for himself in the Champions Hockey League, and he's putting himself out there in the shop window. We talk about the players putting themselves in shop windows, etc. But Corey's doing the same as well. But where do you think maybe his future could lie if he ever chooses to leave the Panthers?
I think a development role would be the best thing for him because, as you say, the players he's developed here. Evan Mosey's another one. Look, Evan Mosey came from the Dutch league, and 2 years at the Panthers, and he gets a season in the AHL, probably just about knocking on the door of the NHL. And okay, he's back here now, but that's a huge jump from the Dutch league to the AHL, and Evan himself credits Corey for that, and rightly so. I think another thing you've got to bear in mind is Corey's been the coach of the Panthers for 10 seasons now. The league has improved every season, and every season we've continued to win trophies. So he's actually managed to improve as a coach while ever the league has improved. He's not stayed at the same level. And going back to something Brock said earlier about he probably hasn't had the respect he deserves. He hasn't, I think, from fans in the Panthers fan base, and I include myself in that wholeheartedly. I've not given him the respect he deserves in the past, and he deserves a lot. Fans of other teams, he is the butt of a lot of jokes. But look at what he's achieved here, the number of trophies he's won. And just look at the past couple of seasons. The first British team to win the Continental Cup. The first British team to win 2 CHL games. 3 CHL games. 4 CHL games. 5 CHL games. First team to qualify for the knockout stages of CHL. First British team to top the group stages of the CHL. Come on. That's not a coincidence. And I see a lot of people putting him down and, he's got all this budget and rubbish. He is the coach. He is the head coach. He's the first head coach to deliver us a league championship in the modern era. So, I feel that he could probably, like Brock says, be sort of WHL, OHL coach. That development area, developing players. I think he would be absolutely superb at that. But I think at the moment, I'm quite happy where he is.
Do we think... just very quickly, I'll come to all of you, and I'll come to you first, Brock. But do you think we are in danger of Corey potentially being poached by a bigger, better league?
I can't answer that. I don't know where Corey's heart is. I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say no. I don't know. I don't know where Corey's heart's at in that retrospective. I know that he's put a lot of time in over there, but I also know, if I'm being a realist, I look at where his kids at are right now, and they're getting older, and they're starting to play a little bit higher levels of hockey, and he's starting to, he had to send his older one over there, back to Canada to play. So
yeah, I've seen Cade play in a 16 GB tournament in December, and he's a hell of a player. So it's hard, and I know maybe in the back of his mind it's there, and I know it would be very hard for Nottingham. I don't think they realize how much he does mean to that organization and what it would mean for him to be lost.
I hope it doesn't happen, but the reality is, in the perfect world, it doesn't. But we're not in a perfect world. We're in a world of opportunities, and the grass is always greener at some point in your life. And I think maybe that time's getting very, very close for him. I can't say I know it because I don't, and I don't want people to speculate because of him and I being close. But I can't see it not happening, unless he's happy being there. But I just, like you said, with his kids and where they're at, and I know that they've been away from home for quite a while, I can see it happening, and I think it'd be a new challenge for him. Because, like you said, he's done everything he can over there, and I don't think that Nottingham is going to be in such a bad place though with David Clark, mentoring under him. Clarkie's a great guy, and he brings a lot of great intangibles to the game as well. So, it would be absolutely impossible to replace Corey. But given time, I think that Clarkie would be a great, person for that role. And obviously, if it need be, then there'd be a position for me to come over and help as well. I would. But like you said, it would be a tough loss for Nottingham. But given a little bit of time and a little bit of growth for the Clarkie and some patience, I think that he can also do a lot of the same things that Corey has.
Yeah, I suppose it is a wait and see, really, and we'll see what develops over this season and obviously in the off season as well. But just to give you a quick update on the Clan versus Panthers game, the third is currently just got underway, and the Panthers are still leading 4-3. Hopefully, I wouldn't have put the old mockers on that, and we see a goal, hopefully, but this time for the Panthers would be nice. Quick question for you, Brock. This one, obviously, just for you, by Ted Logan from The Cage. Best player that you played with and against during your time over here?
That's tough. I got a list. Honestly, the best player I think I played with over there has got to be David Alexander Beauregard, without a doubt. He was a class act on and off the ice. Phenomenal player, sees the ice so well, and some of the things that he did were just mind-blowing. Like I said, he's not just over there. He's probably one of the best players that I've ever played with in general, in the sense of the game. The toughest guy, one of the best players I think I played against is, it's tough to say. There was a lot of good players. I mean, God-given talent. Jake Galbraith was a hell of a player. I think that he was a great player. Was lazy as can be, but when he wanted to turn it on, that guy was a hell of a player. Then you got guys like Doughty. Doughty's. I mean, I've watched Doughty and playing against him. He was a hell of a player, and you just watch him grow. It's been amazing to see that what he brings to the table. Like I said, there's a ton of good players in that league, and it doesn't necessarily go recognized until you're over there and you're seeing it firsthand. And then now being a fan, it's pretty amazing to see the growth and the game over there and what some of these guys are doing. And even guys like Adam Keefe, one of the tougher guys I played against. He's a bastard to play against, but you know what? He represents the game with class, and he played it the right way. He was a warrior, and he made it hard to play. And like I said, I respect the hell out of him. Then you have the guys I'll never forget. I let it go. Daryl Lloyd, guys like that, I just couldn't stand. They still have those dummies running around like that, but you still have those guys, but like I said, there's a lot of good players in that league, and a lot of good things that are coming from it. And it's hard to really put a finger on one. But David Alexander Beauregard by far is the best player I play with over there. And then you can have a handful of number of guys that I played against that were right up there with being the top players.
I mean, Beauregard. I think Andy. He's one of JB's favourite ever players, but I mean, have we ever replaced Beauregard? I don't know, really. Have we?
I don't think you can ever replace a talent like Beauregard. Truthfully, he was different class. He's probably the only sort of real natural goal scorer I've seen play for Panthers. Sort of, you see players that are incredibly good and they score an awful lot of goals, but I don't think I've ever seen a player where so regularly when he got the puck, you just relaxed because you knew he was going to score. And that talent alone is different class. He was a big game player. You've only got to watch that playoff final against Cardiff. He was absolutely different class. And no, I don't think we've replaced him, but by the same token, I think it's bordering on impossible to replace him because of what he gave and what he brought to the team. Like Brock said, it wasn't just a case of he was very good at hockey. He was also a real pure professional hockey player. You know, he dedicated his life to the game, and he got an awful lot out of it. You know, despite realistically what potentially could have ended it early on in his career. So, you know, he really was special, and he's one of the players that for me, you know, he should be honoured in some way with the club. Obviously, he wasn't here very long in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But what he did while he was over here is nothing short of exceptional.
I agree with that 100%. You know, and the scary thing is he only had one eye.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, just coming into it quickly, I've done it again, haven't I? I said that I gave you an update on the Clan Panthers scoreline, and I said it would be nice if Panthers scored, and they have. So it's now 5-3 to the Panthers. I haven't got a scorer at the moment, but once we do, I will let you know. But 5-3 to the Panthers currently in the third period up in Braehead. Sorry, Brock. I mean, you know, you did say I mean, we shouldn't laugh about it, but obviously, you know, Beauregard did have one eye. He had a terrible accident, and it's kind of scary to think that. I mean, do you think if he hadn't have had that injury, he would have been an NHL player?
Oh, without a doubt, he would have been in the NHL, 100%, without a doubt.
Because he did just have natural talent, didn't he? Yep. He was a goal scorer.
Yeah, he had everything. It was, and he was so smooth. It was like art watching him play the game.
Mm.
Josh, by the way,
Josh Schaller, there you go. You've just announced it. Yeah, your boy has got us another goal. So yes, Josh Schaller is the Panthers scorer, taking it 5-3. As I say, to the Panthers. Must be very pleasing for you to see that, Brock, that Schaller's scored a goal there.
It is. I love it. You know what? I love it. I take so much pride in watching the guys that I work with and guys that you know, I take an interest in them playing the game, whether it be the guys that I have that are playing NCAA, junior, college, pro, NHL. You know, every time Vladdy scores a goal, I get excited. You know what I mean? And the guy scores, you know, 40-something a year, and it's just an excitement. I'm proud of them, and it's not about me. It's just about me being happy for them because I know the work that they put in during the summer, and I know what kind of guys they are, and it's just very pleasing for me to see them perform and do what they need to do.
Jono, I'll just very quickly on Beauregard, because I know you are a massive fan of his as well, and I believe for the people that have been listening to this podcast and previous YouTube show for many years would know that the student who used to be a feature on the YouTube show, probably the biggest Alexander Beauregard fan out there. I think he does actually still sleep in his shirt, but they are just rumours. But what a player, Johnny, from your point of view.
So what, as everyone has said, probably one of the most natural goal scorers to ever play in the Elite League. Just a phenomenal player and a wonderful, wonderful guy off the ice as well. A really nice bloke and an astonishing talent. Have we ever replaced him? Probably not, but I don't think you actually can, because I think there's very, very few players with that sort of natural goal scoring instinct that Beauregard had. I think it's going to be a while before we see the likes of him or that sort of player in the league again, because I think they're very much one-offs, or they're very, very rare.
Okie dokie. Well, thank you very much. Sorry, go on.
I can't remember, Jono, was it you who had mentioned, or Andy, was it you who had mentioned the playoff final goal? I watched it. You know what? I show that to all my friends and people that I talk to all the time. Just the goal and how the crowd erupts. I can watch that over and over again. Just how patient he was, and just how such a smooth move that was.
I was just going to say patience. That is the word about that explains that goal for me 100%. Just how patient he was on the puck.
I've always said that, you know, as a Panthers fan, we're slightly biased, but surely as a neutral, that has to be the best playoff final. You know, it had it all. You know, we were down 2 goals twice. You know, Cardiff were exceptionally good at in spells, and it was a comeback story. You know, for me, like I say, as a Panthers fan, slightly biased because obviously we ended up winning it. But I'd like to think that as a neutral, it was a game that people really enjoyed because of, you know, the story of that playoff final. And I think, you know, realistically, it's probably the best game looking back that I've seen us play.
And I think you got the other thing about David Beauregard: 2 playoff finals, 2 game-winning goals.
Yeah,
yeah.
You don't get more big game than that.
No, you certainly don't. Well, thank you very much for your question, Ted Logan from The Cage, and we will move on to another question now. And again, Brock, this one is directed to you. But Colin Baseford via Facebook, he's got a couple of questions for you. So I'll ask the first one. What does Brock think of the more strict NHL slashing rule?
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. But, you know, the NHL is going to find ways to kind of take away from the other things that are going on in the game, whether it be the headshots and all that. I think it's an easy deal for them to focus on stick work. I mean, granted they're trying to make the game better. They're trying to protect the players. I mean, because there are some slashes that go on. I think it's really just kind of goes hand in hand with some of the injuries that happened last year with, you know, with whether it be McDavid and some of those other guys, which is kind of weird finger injuries and kind of broken fingers and this and that, just from little slashes. They're trying to take away from that. I get it. But it's got to be at the referee's discretion. And I think it's going to translate into that. But I think earlier in the year, it's just like any type of rule change. They want to really enforce it, get it down, and then they kind of leave it up to the refs. It just sucks sitting here and watching, you know, all these tiny little stick infractions being called. It just slows down the pace of the game when you really want to focus on getting the game better, faster, more enjoyable for the fans with all these stops and whistles and penalties and stuff. It's not that exciting, and it takes away from the game. Like, come on. It's a physical game. There's going to be stick work no matter what. You know, leave it to the ref's discretion. If it needs to be called, then call it. You know, use some common sense. And I think that the NHL and a lot of these officiating crews and in general, the USA Hockey and Canada Hockey, they try and take the whistles out of the ref's hands and make them enforce them. You know, and it's like, you know what? Let the game happen.
Yeah. Second question from Colin, and he says again, what does Brock think about linesmen and lineswomen now jumping in between fighters so quickly, and how long before a linesman gets injured? I mean, I think from a fan point of view, we always are very quick to go, let them fight, let them sort of finish it on the ice, etc. And we do see sometimes linesmen and lineswomen jumping straight in there before it's even started. But what's your kind of opinion on that? You know, because you've had some fights in the past yourself. So, I mean, is that annoying? Is that something that's annoying as a player?
100%. I mean, if you're up for a fight and you're into it, you're ready to go, and all of a sudden, your adrenaline's going, and all of a sudden you get broken up. I mean, it's like, hey, what the hell? We got to finish this. Mm-hmm. You know, and it puts the referees in a bad spot. I get it. Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to, you know, make it less of a show and less of production. And here, you know what, you can't stage fights anymore and this and that. That's fine. I get it. But, you know, don't just jump into a fight. You know, don't just jump in. You know, let it happen a little bit more. I mean, these guys are seriously getting, you know what, and the worst part is it's not just the linesmen that are getting hurt. It's the linesmen jumping in, one guy letting off, and the other guy saying, screw it, it's still going. And that's an issue. You know what? Let the guys fight it out, because ultimately you're making it worse. I get it. You want to protect the skill guys. The skill guys kind of get into it. The linesmen kind of recognize that. That's fine. Go ahead. So be it. Get into it. But know who's out there. Know who's fighting. You know what? If it's two guys, two hard-working warriors and guys going at it because, you know what, the passion, the energy level of the game's going, get in, you know, let them go. Let them go. Let them handle it. Let them get it over with. That's it. I'm okay with them breaking up the stage fights. If they take too long getting into it, then that's fine. You know what? If they want to act like idiots and put on a performance, tell them to go hit the dance studio or something like that. That's fine. But there's certain lines that need to be drawn, and you got to protect, obviously, the linesmen and the players, because they're putting the linesmen in a hell of a spot.
I mean, what's your view on fighting in general? You know, talking about from the NHL point of view as well, and it kind of goes back to the first part of Colin's question regarding the slashing rule. You know, the game is changing. It is changing in the NHL, and fighting seems to be kind of taking away from the game in the NHL, because that has meant that like the likes of Cam has been able to come over to this league, other players as well. You know, obviously we had Brian McGrattan last year as well. But what side of the fence do you sit on regarding fighting in hockey? Do you think it is something that is part of the game and should always be there, or are you more of this? It needs to be skillful, these speed, more speed, more technical players, etc.
Fighting should always be there. It's a part of the game, and I just had this conversation the other day. The game is losing its passion, it's losing its energy, and it's losing its excitement. Yeah, it's great. You know what? Skill is awesome. Speed of the game's up. Lots of fun to watch, right? Well, guess what? What's going to separate the NHL from all these other different leagues? Okay, you know what? It's all these other leagues now. It's like watching a 24/7 All-Star game for the most part. You look at basketball. It's just, you know what? There's no heart and soul of the game anymore. There's no passion. And I've watched it at the younger levels, and I've watched it at the NHL level, and the game's losing its passion. The guys are just showing up, collecting their points, getting out of the rinks, and it's losing that excitement level that used to separate it from other sports. It's an issue for me. It's an issue for a lot of people that I talk to. They think that, okay, concussion is going to be down, injury is going to be down. It's ridiculous, because the fact is that nobody out there is afraid of a suspension. What you're doing now, taking fighting out of the game, you're protecting the idiots out there, that get to run around, do the headshots, because they're not going to have to answer for anything. It's just like society today. The reality is you can do whatever you want. There's going to be no repercussions, and you know what? And that's it. We'll slap you on the wrist. Here you go. Here's your suspension, and you're probably going to be out doing it again, because I see it now. They have the instigator rule in the NHL, and I think that's the first thing they should do. You want to talk about policing the players, take out the instigator rule and see how vastly the injuries go down and the headshots. I'm telling you right now, there needs to be some sort of policing by the players. That's always been that way. It should never change, because if you do change it and you take it fully out of the game, what's going to stop guys from running around and dirty shots? And you know what? And I watched it last year in the playoffs. We've talked about it on the show before. There's a lot of dirty stuff going on now. It's these slew foots and weird slashes and just no respect anymore for players. And I was talking to a linesman in our league the other day. I was just talking about, guys running around the league. And, he said one kid, there was a spitting incident from somebody spit from the bench. And it's like, that stuff happens now because the no fighting and all this stuff protects guys like that. That's what it does. Taking out fighting in the game doesn't protect the players necessarily. It protects the guys that don't respect the game.
I mean, Andy, I'll come to you because Brock just mentioned one of your favourite rules, the old instigator rule.
I wonder if you'd be coming across.
I would come to you because I don't know whether you know this, Brock, but Andy is a massive, massive fan of the instigator rule. He really, really does love it. But Andy, I mean, fighting it is part of the game. We can't lose that, surely.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they can do what they want with regarding rules and trying to clamp down on it. But when you're playing a sport as physical as hockey, you are always going to get someone that disagrees with that level of physicality at some point during the game. It's no different. I watch a lot of rugby and I appreciate, but it's not part of the game like it is in hockey. But obviously, what you've got to understand is that there are times where out on the field, someone does attack. And we've seen it this weekend in the European games with Owen Farrell does a tackle on one of the players. Someone disagrees with the level of physicality, violence, whatever you want in that tackle, and there's a flare up. Now you see punches thrown every now and then, not very often, granted, but it's a result of the physicality. Now with hockey, it will always be the same because of that level of physicality, and I think. As Brock says, the self-policing is a major facet of this sport, and it always has been. And I make no bones about the fact that some players that we've seen in the past that have been agitators and agitating roles have been fans' favourites, and I appreciate that. But by the same token, the ones that have been, real proper true fans' favourites have been the ones that have also sort of stood up for themselves and backed up what they've done on the ice. You look at people like Bruce Richardson, Ryan Finnerty, players like that. They weren't afraid that if they did something wrong, that they would have to be accountable for it. And that ultimately is how I think hockey should be, how it should be ran, how it should be played, and what I want to watch. I don't want to watch, players spearing people in the nuts and hiding behind somebody else or hiding behind the refs. I don't want to see people slew-footed because they can get away with it effectively. You've
been talking to Daryl Lloyd.
Well, I don't want to mention names, but yeah, and it's things like that because let's face it, headshots are incredibly dangerous, and obviously you look back at our recent seasons with some of the players that have been on the end of concussions, because of headshots. Stevie Lee springs to mind in Coventry as most recent. But just as dangerous are the things like the slew footing and things like spearing players between the legs and stuff. It might not necessarily be the most dangerous act you could do on an ice rink, but you are doing something with the sole intention of trying to make somebody retaliate. And let's be brutally honest. If someone does that to you, you want to rip their head off. You want to kill them. And it's one of those things. Yes, it might not be, like I say, it might not be the most dangerous thing you'll ever see at an ice rink, but it's the fact that they can get away with it. It's the fact that they're doing it to entice a player, because ultimately, if they're not doing it to entice a reaction, then they're doing it to injure, and that's even worse. You look at the NHL and the slashing and things like that, and the way they're clamping down on it. The big nasty slashers are done for one of two reasons. They're done to either get a reaction and draw a penalty, or they're done to hurt somebody. And realistically, if it's the latter, then, like Brock said, there has to be a level of self-police if the referees aren't going to police it. Because realistically, they can't. And they never will, because of the way that, the instigator rule sits there. It's sitting proud so that players can, do what they want and not be held accountable for it. And that's, in my opinion, that's what's got to change, because it's it is a detriment to the sport. And I think yes, every team, when you have them, you love them, these agitating players, but realistically, you also love the players that fill them in on the other team because you hate them. If they play for you, they're great. If they don't play for you, they are the most hated person on the ice. And I think every team likes to have these sort of agitating players, but I know every team also likes to have players that won't stick for it and won't stand for it, and will retaliate when they do these things, because some of the stuff that they do is quite frankly gutless.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your questions, Colin. A real insight there into fighting in the NHL and also over here, and what that brings to the game. And obviously, I think it's clear to say that from tonight's podcast, we believe it should stay in the game because it is important. Right, we're coming towards the sort of end, and we've got a few more questions to go, folks. So do stay with us. But John, I'm going to come to you on the next question because it's something that's been in the news of late. It took Twitter there was a lot of talk on Twitter about it. Yourself obviously tweeted regarding it. But are the Panthers fans being too sensitive, or was the rifle incident at Sheffield inappropriate? And that comes from Panther Rich.
I think the reaction was correct, because we did know the context behind it. The context has since been revealed. He was doing it at some mates, which is fair enough. Maybe a wave would have been better. than attempting to point a gun at them. But at the time, nobody knew the context, and with things that have happened in the world over the past few weeks, it probably was highly inappropriate if it was aimed at opposition fans. It's been clear since that it wasn't. Therefore, I don't think fans are being too sensitive. I just think it was maybe a little bit of rush of blood to the head. Probably not the right thing for him to do, but with the context involved that it was at mates, no harm done, I suppose.
I'm guessing Panther Rich was at the Sheffield game because he's got another question regarding that game, and he asks, regarding the game-winning penalty at Sheffield, Dean Smith, the referee, reviewed after watching a replay on the big screen. Is this appropriate? Brock, I'll come to you on this one if you don't mind. I mean, should a ref look at a replay that's being played on the big screen and then go, do you know what, I'm going to review it? Or should he just stick with what he's first thought?
Well, they're told, I think in most arenas, they're not allowed to replay some of that stuff. I think that the refs aren't even allowed to look at it. It should have no bearing on the game. I agree. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't, unless they decide personally that they're going to make a review and they think that initially they thought maybe they missed something, then they can review it. But to sit there, watch a big screen, watch the crowd's reaction, have all that affect your decision to change, I have an issue with that, and it goes in hand in hand with our consistency thing. You can't have that affect what you've decided. I mean, like you said, granted, you know what? You think you maybe missed something. You don't like the shot, whatever it be. Go to the review, check it out. But you can't let the crowd influence and our video replay board influence that. It looks bad.
I mean, Andy, sort of Sheffield is, I think, one of the only arenas that does show instant replays. I mean, it's for me, it is kind of like what Brock's saying. It's consistency, isn't it? It's a case of if one arena shows it, then it should be across the league. But surely we can't have one club showing instant replays where the refs and the players are looking up to the big screen. If you can't go to another opposition the following night and you don't get that.
Yeah. I mean, it is tough because obviously it's a fantastic piece of technology that Sheffield have got that nobody else has, and there's part of me that thinks they shouldn't be punished just because they're ahead of the game as such in that regard. But I do agree that it shouldn't really have a bearing. For me, the referees have to be sort of big enough to actively ignore what they've seen. And it's the same, it's the same in a lot of sports that use video replays and things like that. There's a lot of them where you get a live reaction from a replay, and then you get the reaction of the crowd, which obviously automatically makes the referees look over, rightly or wrongly. But they've got to be big enough, in my opinion, to ignore that sort of fan reaction and just sort of go on instinct and go on their own, their initial decisions and stuff like that. I have no problem with them. In the context of it, obviously, I didn't realise that it had been shown on the replay, and that seemingly is what caused the decision to review it. One of the things that I had, Ant sent a message into the group saying, why has he reviewed that? If at any point he's not 100% convinced that there's a goal there, he has to review it. At the end of the day, a goal has to be certain, and obviously that's one of the things that we've had issues with in the past before the technology was that a ref can't give a goal unless he's certain that it's gone in. Now, that's what the technology is there for. So if the technology is there and he's not certain, it should be reviewed. Whether he sees it on the replay and thinks, actually, that looks like it might not have gone in, that probably isn't the right way to go about it. But, at the end of the day, they reviewed it. It went in anyway. we were happy. They weren't, but it's it is a tough decision that the referee has to make, and it's one that is sort of made more difficult in our league because it's not openly available everywhere else, and so because of that, naturally, refs are going to look at it because it's an anomaly. It's something different. It's something new, and ultimately, I'm sure that the refs themselves are, one, looking at their own performance, and two, appreciate watching a penalty shot goal. It's natural reaction that they're going to have a look at the screen at some point. But they, like I say, they just have to, in my opinion, they just have to be sort of
professional.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, I mean, professionalism is the key word there. They've got to respect their role, and they've got to respect the sort of rules of the game, and the replay screen there isn't to make decisions. It's to offer replays. So if they feel that it should be reviewed, fair enough, no issues at all. But they can't be using replay screens as a sort of safeguard for their own job.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much for answering that question from Panther Rich. And we will move on to our final question of the night. And this one comes from Lee Constable via Facebook. And he simply says, Robert Farmer, how much has he improved since he joined Panthers several years ago? I remember when he first joined, and most other elite league teams slated him, saying he's a donkey and is good for nothing other than throwing his body around. He's improved so much, and over the last 2 seasons, he's got faster and much more skillful. I mean, look at his goal versus Steelers. Barring Pelini, who Lee says is a gem of a find, he's probably our best Brit. Jono, Robert Farmer, I mean, we have seen a hell of an improvement, haven't we?
We have seen an improvement, but I think he was already a good player to start with. He came to us pre-season, went off to the ECHL. It didn't quite work out for him, so he came back, and I think this is his 5th season with us now, believe it or not. But if you remember, he was a bit of a figure of fun with regards to his fighting when he was playing with Sheffield, Coventry and Braehead, but he still scored a lot of points at those teams. He was always a good player, and yes, he's improved, as all Brits improve when they spend a lot of time with Corey Nielsen. But just going back, the season before he came to us, before he went to the ECHL, he was at Braehead and got 45 points in 48 games. So he's always had that point-scoring ability. And I just think he is our best Brit, obviously barring Pelini, but Brett Pelini is a slightly different case because he's been a career ECHLer, and yes, he was born in Britain and had some of his junior career in Britain, which enables him to be a Brit. But if you're going to use the word, say, naturalised Brit, then yes, Robert Farmer is the best in the roster at the moment, and long may it continue, because I think he's still only 26, believe it or not, and I think there's still a lot more from him to come.
I mean, I think that's the thing about the Brits, isn't it? You look at Robert Farmer, you look at Rob Lakovic, you look at Stevie Lee, they are still sort of mid to late 20s, but it feels like they've been here forever because they started so young with us, and it's amazing. But Brock, I'll come to you on Robert Farmer, because I mean, if my memory does serve me correctly, I do remember a little bit of a scrap that you had with him down at the old Sky Dome. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Well, honestly, I think I did him a favor. I think I made him finally realize he's probably not a good fighter. He really needs to not fight anymore. No, you know what? I got all the respect in the world for Farmsy, because you know what? Coming into the league, I think that he was kind of the league punching bag. I mean, but he answered the bell to everybody. He wasn't afraid, and that's a hard thing to come by. Is to compete against guys like that and to answer the bell. I just think his first few years, he was lost to what kind of player to be in that league. He had the skill, he had all the tools, but I just think that he wanted to play regularly and he wanted to earn his right in the league. And I think that he thought maybe that fighting was the way to do it, and kind of running around. He was kind of a mutt. But the reality is Farmsy's a heck of a player, and I've really seen him come into his own, and it's been awesome to see because the guys love him. He's a good team guy. Guys love him. I've heard nothing but amazing things about Farmsy. He's a good time on and off the ice, and I really am. It's been really good to see because it's not easy doing what he did the first year, 2 years in the league, and I have respect for guys like that. I do. I know that he was probably kind of lost in what kind of player he was going to be and how to go about it. And I think with Corey, it was a little more sense of direction. Like, hey, kid, we don't need you out running around fighting all the time. You got some skill, and Corey's done it. Like I said, Corey's done a hell of a job developing him and leading him the right way and the right way to play the game. And look at the return he's got on it. So kudos to Corey, kudos to Farms for really kind of coming to his own, and he's really become one of the best Brits in the league.
An easy win for you, though, on that night in the Sky Dome, wasn't it? That fight, really? Let's be honest.
Yeah, it was. I think I took it a little easy on him too. To be honest with you, I felt bad for the kid. Like you said, I didn't really have that mentality where I didn't want to embarrass him. But I had to teach him a little bit of a lesson. So. But
I remember it well.
He's a good kid, and like I said, it was nothing but respect for him.
Good. Well, just to update you all on the final score from the Panthers game up in Braehead, it did finish 5-3 to the Panthers, meaning that we did secure 2 Challenge Cup points this evening and 2 points very much needed, I believe. So we will be talking about that game. Yeah, a very important win for us, and we will be talking about that game on next Monday's review podcast. But 3 games this week, and we've secured 2 points from the first one, so also very, very good. And the man of the match for the Panthers is Jan Sauvé, just so you know. But that pretty much does bring us to the end of the questions on this week's Ask TCW. Now, obviously, Brock, before we let you go, we started the show talking to you about obviously the history that you have with the Panthers, but give everybody an update on what you're up to at the moment over there across the pond.
I am currently coaching in the North American Hockey League for the Brookings Blizzard. I'm an assistant coach here under Mo Mantha, and it's been a very, very, very good year. Like I said, I was kind of unsure what I wanted to do moving forward with hockey, and I stepped into an amazing position. He's really taken me under his wing and then taught me a lot of things. Mo's been in the NHL. He's coached in the professional ranks. He's coached USA development programs, so he knows more than I can ever imagine right now at my point in my career. And it's been amazing. We got a good young team, like you said. We went young. The guys are getting opportunities, and they're grateful for it, and they're really putting in the work. We still got a lot of details to kind of hammer out, but we're in first place in our division, which is the toughest division in this league, and we're winning games. We're finding ways to win games. So it's by Christmas time, we hope to be full swing and really make a run at this thing. We've added 2 more guys to our roster, a defenseman, a forward, and like I said, I'm in a good place. I'm really, really excited about this year, and then just continuing to grow as a person, as a coach, and bringing good things to the table. So.
Good. Well, I think obviously from the Panthers Nation is you've kept in touch with the Panthers Nation since obviously leaving the Panthers, and I think it's clear from hearing you and listening to you on the show tonight that you still have a lot of passion for the Panthers as an organisation and also the Elite League as a whole. And I think a lot of the Panthers Nation are very, very fond of you and your memories. So I just want to say, obviously, on behalf of everybody on the Cat's Whiskers, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. It really has been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, I really do. I consider Nottingham family. Everybody there, the fan base, I consider them all family. As funny, as crazy it is to say, it's the people have been nothing but amazing to me. You guys have been great. I love keeping an eye on how things are going. And like I said, we've continued the lines of communication, and I hope to be over someday and see you guys face to face on a daily basis. There would be nothing greater than that. So. Maybe not Jono as much. I don't know Jono.
I'm away with work a lot. So.
Yeah.
to be honest, Brock, we all feel the same regarding that and Jono. So yeah, it's you're not on your own there. To be fair,
well, it'd be great to be sitting at a table right now having a pint with you boys. So
it would be good, and we obviously feel the same, and we look forward to that day happening one day in the near future. But Andy, I would say it's also been a pleasure having you on the show this evening.
Thanks very, very much.
Thanks, Andy.
don't get mad with Jono for most weeks.
And Jono,
yeah, I've been fair to middling, Anna.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just
Obviously,
a little above average.
I wish the people at home could see Jono's profile picture on this thing.
You see, you can't say that now without giving a bit of a description, Brock. So go on, quick description.
Quick description: it's Jono going beast mode, running up the ice. He looks like a linebacker in his pink outfit there for breast cancer. No, it's a great picture, but Jono looks like he's ready to chase down some animals.
That was me. That was one of the very few photos where they had me upright.
Yeah, there you hear it here first. Jono Bullard, the next Panthers signing.
Not at my age.
Right, but obviously, Jono, thank you very much for joining us.
It's been great.
Well.
Personally, I just want to say thanks, Brock, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to be a part of this podcast tonight. It's been fantastic.
Oh, you're such a softie. I love it.
Right, folks, that is it for this week's Ask TCW podcast. We hope you have enjoyed listening to us. As I say, we will be back with the review podcast next Monday. But once again, I would just like to say thank you very much to Andy, Jono, and our special guest, Brock Wilson. And we will see you next time on the next Ask TCW podcast. But for now, bye-bye.
Ciao.